on the rapidly growing global health issue of the Ebola outbreak. Second, we hope to motivate Canadians to work collectively to coordinate relief efforts in the fight against Ebola. Lastly, we seek to engage the community by sparking conversations that will focus on solutions for addressing the Ebola virus and encourage the community to take proactive steps that can contribute to stopping the spread of the virus. The objective of tonight's forum is to provide Canadians with an opportunity to focus on solutions, encourage community development, and raise awareness. Our goal is to connect Canadians to a wide range of information directly from medical experts, workers on the ground, and scientific researchers, so that we can receive an accurate understanding of the Ebola virus. This will also provide us with a greater understanding of where help is needed the most. We've asked attendees to submit questions online that can be selected by our MC throughout the panels. We hope this forum will address misconceptions associated with the Ebola virus, prepare Canadians to respond to the virus, and explore various ways to stop the spread. We also hope to foster greater sensitivity in how Canadians respond to people affected with the Ebola virus. We must do all that we can as Canadians and global citizens to stop the spread of the Ebola virus. We are truly delighted to have Mr. Jones host tonight's forum. Mr. Jones has been very vocal about the Ebola outbreak. He has been helping to raise awareness. He's given us the opportunity to come on the show and to promote our campaign and to also promote tonight's event. So please help me welcome Mr. Dr. Jones.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see so many people out. I wish I'd see more people because this is not an African affair. This is our affair. It's in North America now, and on my program I've been talking about this Ebola crisis for a long time because I recognize as somebody in health, somebody who did agriculture, there's something that they always said, it's better to control the plant disease in somebody else's homeland because if it's catching or it can infect you, it's going to come sooner or later. Here it is, but this is good. I want to congratulate Stacey and Barry, and most of all, let me congratulate Kamara. Give him a big round of applause. That young man sought me out, and he's just so enthusiastic about letting people know about this Ebola crisis. And I pray that God will continue to bless you, good young man. Now, I want to acknowledge everyone here because you're all important, but I think I should point out Superintendent Tony Rivera. Where is he? Stand up, Superintendent. He looks young, but he has the awesome responsibility of being in charge of all the policemen and the security forces in this area that serve Northwestern Ontario, including the Jail and Beach community. It's not an easy job, and we just want to encourage him to just stick to it because there are a lot of good people within the community. It's not what we hear. We should discuss and we should come with our own narrative, right, Louis? About our community. We were just talking about it, and they're talking too much. We're going to have prayer. We're going to call on the interfaith religious leaders who are here. I'm not sure who's here. Can you just stand, please?
Master of Ceremony, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I greet my Muslim brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum, Eid Mubarak. Today we came together as a nation, as a country, and as a continent, fighting against the Ebola disease in West Africa. As is recognized, we must be asking ourselves, why at this time, after we have suffered a legendary and civil war? Every single day and night, people are dying of Ebola. Yesterday alone, almost 100 lives in Sierra Leone. So let us pray to God Almighty to save us from this demonic disease. As Sierra Leoneans, we have open and closed questions that are left unanswered. We have suffered a lot. We need to pray for our communities and villages that have gone out of food, that have gone out of water. We need to pray for our doctors. We need to pray for our nurses and volunteers that are risking their lives to save lives. We need to pray for the dead. May their blessed soul rest in peace. You can all join me in saying Amen or Amen. Amen is the Christian way, Amen is the Muslim way. I will offer you prayer in my religion, being Muslim. Allahumma unsurna ala al-qawmi kafirun. Allahumma unsurna ala al-qawmi munafiqun. Allahumma unsurna fi hadha baladina fi Sierra Leone. Allahumma unsurna fi hadha baladina Liberia. Allahumma unsurna fi hadha baladina في Guinea. Allahumma unsurna fi hadha baladina in West Africa. Allahumma ya Allah, ya Fatah, ya Gaza, ya Malik, ya Qudus, ya Salam, ya Mu'min, ya Muhaymin, ya Aziz, ya Jabbar, ya Mutakabbir, ya Karim, ya Bari, ya Musawi, ya Kafar, ya Qahar, ya Wahhab, ya Razzaq. Al-Fatiha. In the name of God, amen.
And now we hear from Pastor Carver.
Master of Ceremonies, distinguished guests, friends, loved ones. We gather this evening to be aware of this serious disease that has attacked humanity. Although it is indicated that it's an African disease, but I'm aware that disease knows no culture. Any one of us is prone to that. But we gather also to assist our doctors and researchers, but at the same time we want to ask God Almighty to reverse this disease that is attacking us. We want to pray for those that have lost loved ones and friends and young children to this. So we gather here also to pray God and to ask His blessing that He will reverse this pestilence at this time. God bless you in the name of the Lord.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, so we've brought the blessings of the Lord on the proceedings here. So we're going to move it on now. First of all, I'd like to call on Dr. Alvin Curling. He's a former MPP, former ambassador to the Dominican Republic, representing Canada, and also former Speaker of the House. And more recently has been an avid supporter of John Tory. Let's start out with that guy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Certainly. And I just want to say brothers and sisters, because that's what we are. We're part of there are many cliches that went on, like global village and many things like that. The reality now, we are a global village. We are our brothers and sisters keepers. And we gathered here today in a way in which I know that there is a line on the bottom of the flyer that says, looking for solutions. And I want to tell you, we have found a solution. The solutions are all here. We are the solutions. We have the intelligence, the research, and the experience, the compassion. You saw the compassion and love and the support that we have here. Ebola, rightly said, it is not a disease that is common in one part of the world. It can be anywhere. A disease is about a flight away from any country. Anywhere. It could be in Alberta, it could be in Toronto within 4 or 5 hours. So therefore, it's not a situation where we look at this concern that we see isolated somewhere else. There is, sometimes we feel we're walking through this darkness and there's a glimmer of hope. I think that a little peak of light, as you see, is here. Let me just make one quick mention here, and many speakers are here today, that many times when we leave our country from wherever we were born and arrive somewhere else, and we call ourselves the diaspora, and wonder really, we came, as you hear most of the time, to better our life. That's not really so. It's to better the world itself. To bring your talent and resources to a world that needs help in all quarters. The diaspora of the West Africans who are here have this great opportunity to be a part of the solutions now, to give back in a way and help their country and other countries in a way they don't even know how much they can give. I'm sure that many times you see the United Way, the Red Cross and all that, that ask for a small amount of money and wonder where is my 10 cents or $1 or $50 going to go. Every bit helps. Every prayer helps. Every intention helps. Every thought helps. And concern helps. Every money that you can give helps. And I want to applaud those who have put this on today, that this is maybe a great hope of helping each brother and sister in this world. We need you all. Africa needs you. Canada needs you. The world needs you. And it's so good to have you here, because you are part of the solution. And the looking stops now. Thank you so much, and God bless you as we take on this challenge.
Thank you so much, Dr. Curley. Anyway, let me call on Mr. Marvin John from Liberia to bring greetings.
I know we're going to have a good show tonight. Thank you for coming. My name is Ishet Koroma. I have my PhD from the University of Nothing going on, but something is going on. Give me a hand of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, brother Ishet, for media at large.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I remember I was in Guinea, April, May, and June, and also in Sierra Leone, just to spread the awareness and the importance of this disease. I know this disease is a deadly disease, but the main important thing is it's an awareness. How are we going to spread the awareness? It's by educating the community and also educating our brothers and sisters that are down there. Anyway, I had the opportunity to go to Guinea. When I went to Guinea, I visited some patients that are infected with the disease. Also, when I went to Sierra Leone, I had the opportunity also to go into some of the villages and spread the awareness of the disease. I wish we had started earlier on when the disease just started to spread the awareness. I don't think the disease, the spread of the disease would have been so devastating. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Put your hands together. Let's welcome Dr. Michael Gardam.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor here to be with you tonight. What I've been asked to do in 10 minutes or so is basically give some outline in terms of what Ebola virus is, where did it come from, that sort of thing. And then the other speakers are going to be touching on various subjects as the night goes on. So, like many viruses that can infect humans, Ebola virus is actually not a typical human virus. It's actually an animal virus, which occasionally infects humans. And there's been a lot of discussion around where did Ebola actually come from. It looks like now the most likely source for Ebola is actually bats. People have wondered about that for decades. but it's believed to be coming from bats, and bats do not get actually sick with this. So it just lives in the bat population, and once in a while it can go from bats into typically apes, and then humans can get infected through contact with apes, or occasionally contact with infected bats. Then, once humans have it, it can then go human to human. But in terms of viruses, it's actually a relatively hard virus to catch compared to many of the other viruses that we deal with. For example, influenza is a virus we all know, and it's something that those of you who remember the pandemic back in 2009, when the CDC in the States talked about these new viruses that they were finding in California, and they were wondering about whether these were going to be the new viruses in the next pandemic, they were already here in Toronto. That's how fast some viruses can move, and obviously Ebola virus moves much, much slower than that. So Ebola is named after a river in Africa where the first outbreak was described. And typically, Ebola virus outbreaks are nothing like what we are currently seeing in West Africa. Typically, what they are is in often very remote communities, a bunch of people in that community will get very sick, and then the virus stops, and we don't hear about it again for 2 or 3 years. Then it pops up in another remote community. And presumably, these outbreaks are occurring because someone in the community came in contact with either an infected bat or with an infected ape, and then it started spreading person to person. What we're seeing in West Africa right now is really we've never seen anything like this with the amount of spread. A lot of people have been hypothesizing maybe the virus is mutated and it's more infectious than it used to be. That is not true. The virus has actually been sequenced, and it's the same as it always is. So there is no truth to the idea that the virus has suddenly become more contagious. The symptoms of Ebola virus, especially when it starts, are like almost every other infectious disease. People feel weak, they have a headache, they have a fever, they may have muscle aches and pains. That sounds just like malaria, that sounds just like typhoid, it sounds like a whole host of infectious diseases. They all look very, very similar. A few days into the illness, then people can start getting basically stomach problems, diarrhea, vomiting, that sort of thing. And then after sort of 5 or 6 days, they can either start to get better or they can get worse. And as you know, the mortality rate for Ebola virus can be very, very high, so unfortunately most people get worse. Typically the symptoms that they're getting at that point are the symptoms of shock. Basically their organs shut down, and then very soon thereafter people die. It's a very frightening disease. It's one that we've heard about a lot ever since it was first discovered. It's sort of a disease of Hollywood that people talk about. It's a very scary thing. And that's why, is because a large percentage of people who get sick with it will actually subsequently die from it. In terms of how it's actually spread, you're going to hear more about that this evening, but essentially it is spread through infected body fluids. So it is not the kind of virus that you will catch passing someone on the street. You might catch influenza that way, but Ebola virus does not spread that easily to people. It's really contact with infected body fluids. The only way that we're going to protect the world is by treating this at the source. So, unfortunately, we're finally starting to hear that Western governments, etc., are waking up to that fact. And so, with a lot of support, and I don't just mean medical support, infrastructure support, etc., this is a virus that can and will be stopped. The reason it hasn't been stopped yet is because people have just not paid enough attention to this. But with support, it actually will be able to be stopped. Thank you.
Let's welcome, nicely, round of applause, Dr. Jeremy Carver.
Putting this educational forum together is is obviously important for all of us to understand. And as a scientist, to try to describe research on Ebola in 10 minutes is a real challenge. So I'm going to be very, you might think superficial, but it's important. The first thing is treatment. WHO pulled together 200 experts about a month ago, and they debated what can we do in the immediate situation in terms of improving treatment. And they said two things. One was, obviously, we could improve infection control, and there's a great deal of effort going into that right now, with more and more trained people and more personal protective equipment being shipped over. The other thing that was pointed out at that press conference was that we've known for 100 years that if we take the blood from someone who's survived one of these viral diseases and give it to someone who's severely ill, that we can often improve the condition and even cure that individual. And the reason is that when we are infected, our bodies have a defense mechanism. And that defense mechanism initially is to make antibodies, either proteins that then circulate in your blood and attack either infected cells or the virus itself. And when someone has survived the infection, it's because their body mounted an adequate attack on the infectious agent. So then, by collecting blood from people who have recovered, we can give those antibodies to someone who is not mounting a good response, who's not making enough of these antibodies, and help them deal with the infection. As I say, this has been known for 100 years. It was used in previous Ebola outbreaks with some success. So the message from WHO from that press conference was that we need survivors to come forward and be willing to donate their blood to help treat those that are not doing so well with the infection. That, I understand, has unfortunately created a black market in survivor blood, which we all have to deal with. I want to talk, though, about how we translate that century-old observation using current science into something even more, potentially more advantageous in the circumstance. We can take blood from a survivor and we can identify the antibodies and we can then sequence them. We can determine exactly how they're made up. We can use modern biotechnology and genetics to make large amounts of those antibodies that were effective against the disease. Now this is, to some extent, what the famous ZMapp, or if you're from the United States, ZMapp, is a cocktail of 3 such antibodies. But these antibodies were made in mice and then humanized, and so there are some potential for complications down the road. But by taking blood from a survivor, you actually are isolating human antibodies that are readily accepted by another human. So our consortium, when we first learned that there were cases in Nigeria determining the sequence of these antibodies in the blood of survivors, and they said, we'll work with you. And then we contacted our colleagues in Switzerland who were experts in making large amounts once you have the sequence. And they said, we'll work with you. And then here in Canada, in Winnipeg, we have one of the best facilities for testing the efficacy of these antibodies. And in fact, as I mentioned, the current ZMapp has 2 antibodies that came from that work in Winnipeg. And in the near term, obviously, it's not going to produce treatments immediately. But in the near term, there is the prospect of being able to produce tens of thousands of treatments for patients who are severely ill. I have to say that this is all because of the work that scientists have been doing for decades in all of these related areas. As you heard how many teams we've had to put together to do this. so it's only by being able to form these teams that we can actually respond rapidly. And that's why we started this international consortium 10 years ago, was to have a network of people that could be called upon in an outbreak situation to respond rapidly, because we all know each other. We had a conference in Abuja in 2007 to know our Nigerian. We had a conference in Beijing to know our Chinese. So by putting together this global network, it's actually what the theme so far this season has been. Putting together this global network of scientists who believe something can be done very soon. Last point, we are having a symposium in New York in November. We have a whole day devoted to Ebola. It will be some science and some not so science. Many speakers from different countries in West Africa describing their first frontline experiences. Some Canadians who've been to West Africa describing their experiences. So a somewhat more scientific version of what we're doing this evening. So those of you who are curious, sign up on our website. The information is on the registration list. There's no registration fee. Come along and learn science. So I hope you understood my explanations and that you now can see how the direction that research is going. There are many other approaches that if I had time I could give